A very good morning to everyone. In today's rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape, national security extends far beyond military defense to encompass economic stability, environment sustainability, social resilience, and even climate sustainability. A session on comprehensive national security is essential for students, especially today, to understand the interconnected challenges shaping global and regional stability. We are indeed honored to have with us today Lieutenant General Vinod Khandare, who is currently serving as the Principal Advisor in the Military of Defence. We welcome you, sir. I would also like to extend my welcome to respected Registrar, sir, Dr. Chanakya, Dr. Sunny Thomas, sir, he is the Dean of School of Law and Liberal Arts. And I am also delighted to share that we have with us today Dr. Mrinmay Bhushan, who is an author, a scientist, and an expert on biochem, war, and national security issues. So welcome you, ma'am, as well. Welcome to all the teachers and my dear students. Moving on, I would now like to invite respected Registrar, sir, and Dr. Sunny Thomas, sir, to felicitate our guest. I would also like to invite Dr. Sunny Thomas, sir, to felicitate our guest, Dr. Mrinmay Bhushan, as well. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I would now like to invite Professor Kedar Kulkarni to introduce our guest and speaker for today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Respected Chief Guest today, Lieutenant General Khandare, sir, respected Registrar, sir, respected Dean, sir, and dear students, faculty members, and all the teams. It is truly my privilege and honor to introduce a man who has served in the uniform for over 40 years. Lieutenant General Vinod Khandare is currently the Principal Advisor at the Ministry of Defence since March 2022. He was the Military Advisor at NSCS for 3 years till 12 October 2021. He was Director General Defence Intelligence Agency and Deputy Chief of Integrated Defence Staff, handling Tri-Services Intelligence till 31st Jan 2018. Sir has been involved in handling security issues during the terrorist attack of Pathankot, Uri, Nagrota, Sanjuvan, and our response to the hard-hitting surgical strikes on the west and the east. Predominantly, the Balakot airstrike and the release of our pilots from Pakistan was during his tenure at the NSCS. He has been a UN military peacekeeper in El Salvador in 1994 and the chief instructor training the army of Lesotho from 2005 to 2008. Sir has a vast experience in handling military affairs and has been involved in advising the apex level of decision making based on analysis and assessments impacting national interest. Sir has first-hand experience of Northern Siachen Glacier in 1988. These were the initial years which saw intense fight between India and Pakistan to gain control over the icy heights, while logistics were a big concern in those times. Sir was actively involved in countering terrorism in the hinterlands of Jammu and Kashmir and northeast of India. He commanded his battalion during the 1999 Kargil War in the Nowshera sector and during the Kandahar hijacking case of 1999. In October 2000, in a retaliation operation, he led his battalion to destroy a Pak army post, killing over 26 Pak soldiers and demolished the post using explosives. In 2001, he led his battalion to destroy a Hizbul Mujahideen group of 17 cadet terrorists in a 72-hour military operation in Bir Badisar sector. For that, he was awarded the Sena Medal Gallantry for his bravery. Later on, he got more awards from the President of India, namely the Param Vishishta Seva Medal in 2017, the Ati Vishishta Seva Medal in 2015, and he is also a recipient of the UN Peacekeeping Medal in 1994. And also the Chief of Army Staff Commendation Card in 2011 and the Western Army Commander's Commendation Card in 2012. In 2021, he led an inter-ministerial delegation to Nigeria to enhance the defense cooperation. He has enhanced synergy between technical and human intelligence, about which we will be talking more about today, operational and strategic level. He is an expert in conventional, sub-conventional, and most importantly, new age warfare that involves cyber warfare, space, information, and other elements of comprehensive national power. And today's topic is comprehensive national security and national power. He is an expert in capability and capacity enhancement, including Atmanirbhar mission, and he has promoted defense diplomacy by his relentless initiatives. He is an avid thinker in conflict prevention, management and termination, and also in technology, search and incorporation. Currently, he is a distinguished fellow at the USI New Delhi and emeritus research faculty with the Rashtriya Raksha University, Gandhinagar. He is committed to shaping the youth as the national human resource capital for the present and the future. He is working on ancient and medieval period wisdom lessons derived from history, about which we will be talking about today, for the military and non-military way forward in nation building. In 2024, he was awarded Lifetime Achievement Award by his school at Indore. Closely following that, we were extremely proud to honor Sir with the Doctorate of Letters at our own university just a year ago. Sir is actively lecturing and he continues to write on security issues and national development, and he continues to advise ministries, think tanks and educational institutions on matters of national security. It is truly our privilege and honor, sir, to welcome here. And let me tell you, friends, that sir has had an intense night due to the flight changes and all. He has had very little rest, but in spite of that, his commitment to come here, especially to address the youth, is something very heartwarming and something we can all learn from. So I invite you, sir, to address the audience. So I first invite Dr. Sunny Thomas, sir, to introduce a few comments, and then
we are on the midway of good morning and good afternoon. At the outset, let me apologize to all of you for having started this program a little late. Thank you for your patience. Today we have a veteran from defense sector. I do not want to stand between him and all of you. And let me tell you, the greatness of our nation, of our country, is today we have a veteran, and tomorrow we are going to have the Shankaracharya of Sringeri Mutt visiting our college, our university. This is the beauty of our nation. Our country is facing geopolitical threat and defense threat from across the borders. When I was a student of political science back in 1982, I was told that Pakistani army is not a threat to India, but an unstable Pakistan, a Pakistan which is having political instability, a Pakistan which is having economic instability is a threat to India. Today, when we look at our nation, our immediate neighbors like China is trying to encircle us. The only Hindu nation in the world, Nepal, has elected a radically communist government. The only Buddhist country in the world, Sri Lanka, has again elected a radically leftist government. If you look at what has happened in Bangladesh, again instability. I was surprised Bangladesh National Party leader made a statement saying that give us 2 days and we will take Assam, Bihar, Bengal and Odisha. Look at the brazenness. An unstable Kabul is again a danger to us. And of course we have the perennial adversary in the name of China. In the midst of all this crisis, our nation stood strong. We are the only democratic country in the world after the Second World War which withstood all the difficulties of time, and we embedded ourselves to democratic institutions and democratic ideals. Every now and then I think of our country. I always feel proud that there is one institution, maybe more than one, but at least one institution in this country which is apolitical or apolitical. That is the defense sector. We are able to sleep in our homes safely because these brave soldiers are fighting the battle for us, probably in the highest regions of the universe. So therefore, sir, it's not only an honor for me, but also to my university, but to all the students who are sitting here. Your presence instills a sense of bravery. Your presence instills a sense of patriotism in all of us. Yesterday, we have celebrated the greatest king of our land and his birthday. So I end my welcome address with Jai Hind and Jai Maharashtra. Thank you.
Jai Hind. I think we can do better. Jai Hind. What is the meaning of Jai Hind? Let me start with that. And before I make you think on that, my compliments and respect to the dignitaries on the dais. A very generous introduction about me by Kedar and the geopolitical summary given by Dr. Thomas makes my job that much more easier. So let me get back to the fact. जय हिंद क्या है? दो शब्द हैं, लेकिन ये दो शब्द समराइज करते हैं हमारे देश की विजन, हमारे देश का ध्येय, और वो विजन और ध्येय प्रधानमंत्री मोदी से लेके एक आम नागरिक तक कॉमन है. You try and look at a vision which any country will give you. It will be a number of pages. I think this is the great civilizational wisdom that you are able to compress, at the same time expand your entire vision in 2 words, which remind all of us, because we greet each other not by good morning but by Jai Hind. So it is a way to tell you the simplest answer of this is Jai means victory, Hind means my country. My country should win in everything, whether it is Olympics, whether it's a conflict, whether it's an economic competition, anything and everything where there is competition, my country has to win. So if Jai Hind is said by a soldier, it is not only meant for the soldier fraternity, it is meant for the entire citizenry. So if we start our day by saying Jai Hind, you are reminding yourself that my entire day is to be done in a manner that my country should always come first. When Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose started talking to his soldiers in Azad Hind Fauj, or the Indian National Army as it was known then, and he used to address them by Jai Hind, it also brought in one thing, that you may be a commander-in-chief, but your soldier and you are on the same platform when you greet each other. The other point which I want to make here is, when we are talking about our national security, we must understand the concept, and what better place than an educational institution where we talk about a concept. So people will talk about national security, people will talk about national power, then somebody suddenly comes up with a phrase, comprehensive national power and comprehensive national security. What does it mean? So you have to go back a few years to understand. When somewhere around the 15th century, the Europeans started moving out on maritime expeditions, whether it was Vasco da Gama, whether it was Christopher Columbus, it was not out of adventurism, it was out of compulsion, and that was an economic compulsion. What was the economic compulsion? The Arabs had already captured the entire northern Africa and parts of Europe and had stopped all kinds of trade which was from Asia. That was the spice trade and the silk trade. Now today, for a generation of your kind, you will say, ये क्या बड़ी बात है? आपको ये समझना पड़ेगा कि उस समय इंग्लैंड में सिर्फ भेड़ें चराई जाती थी और भेड़ों से निकलता था ऊन, और ऊन को आप धो नहीं सकते थे. आप धोएंगे तो बदबू मारेगा. They had to look at cotton, they had to look at silk. If they wanted to preserve non-vegetarian food, they needed spices. It was a compulsion. It was not a matter of richness, it was a matter of survival. And when that rule stopped, and the Arabs were demanding huge sum to let this trade happen. अगर आप लोगों ने इतिहास पढ़ा है तो आपको शायद ये भी मालूम होगा कि अरब लोगों ने उस समय स्पेन तक को कैप्चर किया होगा. In Spain, the biggest mosque was in a place called Cordoba. And it took 300 years thereafter for people from Spain to evict the Arabs and reclaim the mosque to a church, which is there today, and also reconvert all the people who had converted to Islam back to Christianity. So that has happened there. So it's a matter of history, provided we read it in the correct context. Now that was the time when Christopher Columbus started on an expedition financed by the Italian Queen. The Portuguese Queen financed Vasco da Gama's expedition. They both started in different timelines. Imagine the irony of it that Christopher Columbus went thrice to what is the American continent today, and all these while he was thinking he is in India. इससे बड़ी ट्रेजेडी कोई हो सकती है कि मरते दम तक उसको लग रहा था वो इंडिया में. Vasco da Gama found a way around the African Cape and came to India in the southern part of India. What was done by the Portuguese in India was exactly what was done by Christopher Columbus and his people, the Spaniards. People say they colonized us. They may have colonized us, but in Spanish language, the word is not colonization. They don't call the Spaniards as colonialists. They call them conquistadores. Means they conquered them. What is the difference between colonizing and conquering? Today, if you look at the entire North and South America, the religion has changed, the names have changed, the family names have changed, the the traditions have changed, everything has changed, nothing is original. Here, I am still Vinod Khandare. I am still following my faith. I still have my village. So, whatever be colonization, we had strong civilization and background because of which we retained our roots. Now, whether we will continue to retain our roots is for your generation to decide. Now, let me tell you, why did I mention this? Around that time, out of the economic compulsion, they came out to search for resources. And what were the resources they were looking at? I told you spices, I told you cotton. Now people say that, our colonizers, they were from different countries. Portuguese were here, the Dutch were here, the French were here, the British were here, every possible country was here. In Africa, the Italians and the Germans were also there. So finally, what is it that they were looking at? They were looking at getting the agricultural product, the minerals, and they needed manpower. So that is also a resource, human resource, and that is when the slavery trade started from Africa. Now we all condemn slavery trade, and then we feel very happy that Abraham Lincoln finished slavery. Are you aware that there was a different kind of a slavery trade in India? The British, they started something known as indentured labor in 1830, 1850, 1880. This was the period, if you look at 1830 to 1880, the Indian mainland had gone through tremendous amount of famines, droughts, spoiling of the soil, and people were in huge debt. Indian lifestyle traditionally has been simplistic, minimalist. They were not into cash crops as much as the Europeans were. Let me give you an example. Say you look at, how many of you are from Vidarbha? Please raise your hands. Okay. Right. Now, Vidarbha is a region, I belong to Vidarbha, so that's why I am giving you an example. It was never known to be a cotton growing region before the British. Not at the scale at which the British wanted. Jowar, tuar dal, lasun, pyaj, sabzi, that is all that people wanted. Now come the British, and now you correlate that particular period when they had already done away with the Maratha Empire, and they wanted now cotton to go to Manchester. So they encouraged farmer, okay, if you grow cotton, we will give you this much money, and then you can buy jowar from the other person. A race emerged and everyone started growing cotton. Nobody was growing food. That resulted in famine. The British were not bothered. People were dying. Same thing happened in Andhra. What is Andhra today? Same thing happened in Tamil Nadu. What is Telangana? Also same thing happened. Same thing happened in Bihar, Eastern UP, Bengal. And then the British came up with a proposal to say, why don't you sign an agreement with us? We will send the entire family to what is a British colony somewhere else, where your expertise of growing sugarcane and your expertise of growing cotton and rubber can be utilized. So you go there with your family. These people were called the indentured labor, not the slave, but in effect they were the slave. Because they had signed an agreement in English when they didn't even know how to read Marathi or Telugu. So that became, ये agreement वाले हैं, agreement हो गए गिरमिटिया. So when you start looking at a term known as गिरमिटिया, जिन्होंने agreement sign की वो गिरमिटिया. They took 60 to 90 days to reach West Indies, Mauritius, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, Fiji, and these families, by the time they were going with their wife, their children, there is a husband, there is a wife, there are 3 children, 4 children, 5 children. By the time they reach South Africa, the wife has expired, 3 children are born. Now he is remarried there out of compulsion. So after this 5 year what he had signed, he cannot come back because he'll be thrown out of caste because he's married a woman who's of some other caste. So they stayed there. And this was the lot which pushed the British economy to a level where it is today. So your own economy got ruined, their economy got propelled based on your human resource, your skilled resource. It's not only the British, the same thing was done by all the European powers. There they realized the only way to push your national power is by getting economy right, and to get economy right, you must use force, that is military power. So this concept of national power, as far as the Europeans are concerned, has two components, or had two components at that time: economics and military. For a number of years, till about the end of World War II, this is exactly how the entire world looked at national power, that is economy and military. Then started other things, because now post-World War, we started having a dialogue on diplomacy, so diplomacy got added. Then people started saying that for diplomacy, for economics and for military, you need information. So information came in there. So that acronym of DIME or DIME, which the Westerners coined, was evolved in this particular manner. Now, this is a Western thought. Conceptually, Indians or Asians do not agree with this in totality. Our thought process is that nations become great beyond these four components of constituents. There is a cultural angle added to that, there is technology added to that, there are many things added to that. So the Chinese and the Japanese or the Koreans and the Indians said, no, the time to pura nahi hai. We will look at comprehensive national power, and that is where things started getting added. And I will just try and simply explain to you that a nation has to be powerful. You need economy, no doubt about it, but you need a stable political situation also. Economy and politics go hand in hand. If a country is economically at number one in per capita, can it be called as a global power? It cannot. You have the best of oil resources, you have money, but you are dependent on agriculture, you are dependent on water, you are dependent on everything possible from somewhere else, then you cannot be called a global leader. So please remove that idea that अगर पूरा fossil fuel किसी के पास है तो वो global leader हो सकता है. एक particular silo या vertical में हो सकता है, लेकिन उसको complement करने के लिए और भी चीजें चाहिए. वहीं पे मैंने बोला आपको कि राजनीति का भी एक खास योगदान है. Come to South Asia. In South Asia, India is the only country with a stable political structure. We may like it, we may not like it. We may agree or we may not agree. You look around you, there is no state or country where their political parties have had a complete tenure as prescribed by the constitution. पाकिस्तान में कोई भी elected government अपने पूरे 5 साल का tenure complete नहीं कर पाई. बांग्लादेश में similar situation after Sheikh Hasina has gone. श्रीलंका की हालत आप लोगों ने देखी, मालदीव की हालत आपको मालूम है, नेपाल की हालत अभी आपको डॉक्टर थॉमस ने बताया. कहने का मतलब ये है कि अगर आपकी अर्थशास्त्र की नीति आपको आगे लाना है तो आपको पॉलिटिकल स्टेबिलिटी चाहिए. पॉलिटिकल स्टेबिलिटी दो तरीकों से आती है. The citizens must participate in politics actively in a healthy manner. That is your duty, that is my duty. So if tomorrow somebody is telling you, please go and vote because that is your right, also add, it is also your duty. So in addition to fundamental rights, you must also look at duty of citizens. So political duty is very much a must. And the second factor where the political system stays stable is when you have a mature military. You look around yourself, there is no country which can claim that their military did not interfere in the politics of that country. In fact, in Pakistan, the military interferes in the politics and the economy both. There is no military in the world which has so much economic interest as is existing in Pakistan, and my research also shows that the same is applicable in Bangladesh and in Sri Lanka also. Pakistan military is involved in the economy to a manner that they run industries from conflicts to aircrafts. They have interest in that. The largest number of housing colonies development is by Pakistan military. Army, Navy, Air Force, all put together. Now, those of you who want to read more of this, there are books available on this part. So Ayesha Siddiqa is a famous author, and you must read the book and also listen to her on YouTube. I have had the privilege of interacting with her, and after she wrote this book, she could never get back to Pakistan. So she lived either in Europe or lived in USA because she's been honest about it. And I think this particular quality of Indian military should be acknowledged, that we respect the constitution and we have never ever attempted to carry out a coup. I think that deserves a clap. After politics, what comes next? So now we are talking of industrial security. For industry, you need energy. For industry, you need human resource. For human resource, you need education. All these are interlinked. So if you need industry, the entire world may be racing at a particular speed. You need to get there. So there is a huge differential between the industrial capability of a few nations and India. We have a sustained growth rate, and industry is the one which is pushing. So when you start looking at, we started with Jai Hind, so what is the vision given to us? So for a number of decades, we were told about roti, kapda aur makan, which is right. After partition, those were the main concerns, roti, kapda aur makan, because there was trauma in society, there was turbulence in families. So roti, kapda aur makan till that time was perfectly alright. A car always does not go only in first gear. A car has to change its gear as it keeps moving in distance. So that gear change has happened. And now you are told that by 2047 we have to be a Viksit Bharat. That is the mission. And for that, will only the Prime Minister lead the way? Each individual has to contribute. Now, why I am saying this is, and this is not something which has suddenly come onto our brain from somewhere and to say that this is how it has to happen. Even before Christ was born, we had a famous strategist known as Kautilya. Kautilya is studied by the entire world. We are busy studying somebody else. Kautilya or Chanakya or Vishnugupta, the same person. Everything that he wrote in Arthashastra is not only his, but he has borrowed it from the past, what Bhagavan Shri Krishna has said or done, what Shukracharya has said or done, or what Vidur has said, one of the most intelligent people in our history. It is not mythology, it is history, itihas. So that is how it is. So he has put all that into Arthashastra. Number of volumes of that book. When Alexander was knocking on the doors, he moved from what was his university, Takshashila, came to Magadh, tried to explain it to Nand, the king of Magadh at that time. But the king was so intoxicated and arrogant about his own power that he was not willing to see what should be done outside. And what Kautilya was trying to tell him, that don't wait for the invasion to happen on your doorstep. You must tackle it even before it unfolds. That was not understood. And he was insulted, humiliated, and with a mission, he started looking at a suitable candidate to replace this dynasty. the Nanda dynasty. He found one and he found Chandragupta, and that is when the entire history of India started taking a change, and the entire history of Chandragupta Maurya Empire is known to all of us. Now people say that Kautilya has to be compared with people like Aristotle or people like Sun Tzu. Now, in academic circles you can keep doing it, but at the same time you have to see what is best for us. So Sun Tzu wrote The Art of War, 33 strategies of how to win a war. But Arthashastra is about statecraft. It is about how a nation has to be run. What should be the qualities of the king? What should be the governance system? War, should it be avoided? Till when? Everything is given in Arthashastra. Artha is economic. Shastra is the knowledge or the wisdom how to do it. A very simple way of explaining complex issues is there in India. At times that simplicity gets translated into religion so that it becomes a ritual and everyone continues to follow it. If climate change has to be avoided, then trees are not to be cut. So trees can be considered as form of God. That's the simplest way of doing it. Animals have to be preserved so they can be worshipped. A simple way of doing it. Kautilya also found, how do I explain this issue of national power and security to common people? So he said, look, the way our human body is, the nation or Rashtra is exactly like that. He said, इसको समझ लीजिए आप कि जैसे आपके शरीर में एक सिर, मस्तिष्क, बुद्धि, जिससे आदेश मिलता है कि हाथ में क्या करना है, पाँव में क्या करना है, हृदय ने क्या करना है, आंखों में क्या करना है, ये सब मस्तिष्क से आता है. तो आपका मस्तिष्क या सिर आपका स्वामी है. उसी तरह से देश का प्रधानमंत्री, राष्ट्रपति, राजा वो स्वामी है. He is the person who has to be listened to. But who will the Swami listen to? So there has to be a support structure which was of advisors, and those advisors were called Amatyas. So he says, whatever is advising the brain, आँख है, कान है, हाथ है, पाँव है, nerves हैं, ये सारे आपके advisors हैं. उसी तरह से देश के अंदर आपके मंत्री होंगे और मंत्रियों के नीचे उनको मदद करने वाले लोग होंगे, उनको सबको एडवाइजर कैटेगरी या अमात्य में काउंट किया जाएगा. Now, this Arthashastra as a document suddenly vanished in the year 1200, and it finally was found in 1905. Now, if you correlate what happened in 1200, who came to India? Who started destroying our culture, our wisdom? People who are interested at looking after the libraries, temples, forts, they suddenly hid all these things which were precious. So the Arthashastra was also hidden. But does that mean that the wisdom out of that also got hidden? No, that did not happen. Indian civilization adopted a method that if I don't have a book, my grandfather will tell me what is to be done in the form of a story. My mother will tell me a story, and I will learn at home. Shivaji did not go to Cambridge. Shivaji did not go to Stanford. Her first and the best guru was Jizabai. Whatever Shivaji did, if you analyze, you will realize a lot of it came out of Kautilya's Arthashastra. The most important of that was, what qualities should the king possess? It is a perfect example of what Shivaji had. How does it correlate within the Indian armed forces? One small anecdote to this. General Rawat, the first CDS, you all remember?
Yes, sir.
You all respect him?
Yes, sir.
You all respect Shivaji?
Yes, sir.
Now, whatever Jizabai had taught Shivaji and whatever we all were looking at our ancient history we realized that when foreign dignitaries come to visit General Rawat, and he used to present them a coffee table book, which was exactly a tradition that we had copied from the colonial past. तो उसमें पिक्चर्स होंगे, 71 वॉर के होंगे, 65 वॉर के होंगे, हमारे रेजिमेंट्स के होंगे, लेकिन उसमें भारतीयता कहाँ है? So he took a bold decision and he said, the first page when somebody opens, it will have a pencil sketch of Sri Ram, and the last page will also be a pencil sketch of Bhagwan Shri Krishna. Why? How do you describe Ram? Maryada Purushottam Shri Ram. Maryada, if a soldier and a king live in his or her Maryada, I think the state will prosper. It will become powerful. Purush Uttam, सबसे उत्तम पुरुष. Those are the qualities required in every soldier, sailor or airman. Shri is a matter of respect, and Ram is the name. When this was introduced and the logic was explained to everyone, in Indian Army we are not divided on religion at all. We have a place of worship which is called Sarva Dharma Sthal. There is a mosque, there is a mandir, there is a church, there is a gurdwara, there is a Buddhist monk also there. If the Panditji is going on leave, his job is being done by the Jnaniji who is a Sikh. If the Maulvi is going, the priest, he is doing that. We are very clear about one thing, whatever may happen outside, we are quite insulated in keeping our people together, focused for national interest. So when this kind of a thing was propagated, everyone felt happy that okay, at least the Indian part is being sent. Again, for your interest sake, one of our biggest training establishments is in Mau, where we have 3 big training establishments, and the biggest training establishment is known as Army War College. At the entrance of the Army War College main building, there is a huge, massive size of picture which is shown of Sri Krishna giving Gyan to Arjun in the battlefield. What is it showing? That when we join the army, and this is for you all, especially youngsters, you may feel army में जाने के बाद पढ़ाई नहीं करना पड़ता, ऐसा नहीं है. In the armed forces, you study more than what you are studying today. So those who don't want to study, please don't come. But those who want to progress, because from your normal curriculum in college, now you will get into forms of warfare. You will get into different new age warfare. Dr. Bhushan, who is sitting here, is an expert on biochemical security, defense and warfare. And I had requested her to come here because she recently written a book, Silent Warriors, Silent Weapons. Those are the silent weapons that we talk of about the new form of warfare. And that is the added dimension now. We know of what happened in Ramayana, we know of what happened in Mahabharata. Those were different kinds of wars. We know of the wars at Panipat, the battles. We know of what happened in Maharashtra, Karnataka. We know what happened in Battle of Plassey and Buxar. But today things are much different. Today you have to look at kinetic and non-kinetic. In kinetic, you have very clearly a soldier. His job is defined. But in non-kinetic, every citizen is a warrior. You are a defender. Now people say that armed forces, we need huge armed forces. If you need huge armed forces, that requires expenditure. Can you afford it? A nation, if it has to grow economically, then it has to have affordable solutions for everything. Now, because the Americans have a huge army or the Chinese have a huge army, so the Indians must have a huge army. This is no rational, this is no logic. We must have capability. That is the answer. Do we have lessons in the past? If responsibility is shared, then there is a lesson in the past. There are two examples I want to give. In Shivaji's army, it was a farmer's army. The peasant, either he was doing agriculture, so there was a season, and after monsoon season, when there was nothing much to be done there, then expeditions used to go out. Shivaji used to go and conquer a fort, किला पकड़ते थे. तो आपका जो किसान था वही सैनिक भी था. हर एक गांव में, हर एक मोहल्ले में एक अखाड़ा होता था. अगेन दिस इज विजडम. आज जिम है, लेकिन उस समय अखाड़ा था. अखाड़े में आपको फिजिकली फिट रहना सिखाया जाता था. कॉम्पिटिशन होती थी. देयर यूज्ड टू बी प्रोसेशन इन विच public display of your skill of arm was appreciated by society. We lost it because somebody from the West and came and said, "This is some primitive." It is not primitive. There is a logic to that. He did not have a huge standing army, but he was able to give a fight and give us a vision, give us a dream of having your own Rashtra. Because he had participation from every citizen. Is this the only thing that we can emulate? Anybody from Assam here? Okay. Assam, now people will say it is far away. No, it is not far away. It is part of India. वहाँ पे अहोम किंगडम्स है या था. अहोम वहाँ के जो राजा थे उनका एक सिस्टम था. They did not have a standing army at all. Every citizen was a warrior. They had the minimum number of resources. But for 600 years, they were in power. 600 years. They were able to defeat the Mughal army, and they had a great warrior known as Lachit Borphukan, who lured the Mughal army into Brahmaputra and destroyed them there. Because Mughals had no idea about fighting on water. You choose your strength, you look at the weakness of the enemy, you lure him in and destroy. That is what Lachit Borphukan did. In the 17th century, that is when Shivaji was there, when Lachit Borphukan was there was another great warrior which this country has produced, Guru Gobind Singh. Nobody teaches us history by correlating what was happening in that part of the world at the same time. There were a number of people doing the things which were right. So if something was being done right here, there was something being done right in Assam, there was something being done by Guru Gobind Singh at the cost of losing his children, there was something being done even in Rajasthan. All this was happening together. The only problem was these dots were not connected. That is one more lesson we learned, that if we have to work together, then we must have fusion, we must have synergy, which we have always lacked historically also. Maybe there is something in our DNA that we believe in individual excellence, not collective growth. So that is something again which we need to look at. If this is how we could do it then, this is what we can do today. For doing that, the governance system will have to undergo some changes. Very honestly and candidly, and not being political at all, since independence in 1947, we were doing trial and error of how to do governance in the country. To a large extent, we still followed that same system which the British left us with. Even today, you know of a person who is called the district collector. What is he collecting? During British time, he was collecting revenue. Today, he is the CEO of the district. So we have to get rid of this thought process, because if I call somebody by a name, then he starts visualizing that he is that. You call somebody as Lakshmi Prasad, he starts feeling that he is Lakshmi ka Prasad. But if you start calling him by some silly name, then he also goes wrong. And why I am saying this is, again from our historical perspective, Such colonial practices have to be done away with. There is a lot of richness in what we have. I mean no insult to anyone when I say that when the push comes from the West about feminism, we don't need it. Why? We always worship Saraswati. Saraswati told us about knowledge, literacy, wisdom. And with that wisdom came another deity, Devi, Lakshmi. So wisdom got you wealth. And if you do not protect your wealth by praying and believing in Durga, then what happens? What happened to Nalanda University? What happened in Nalanda University? The library was burnt by Bhaktiar Khilji. It burned for months together. Hundreds and thousands of volumes of literature got burned. So when Prime Minister Modi says Viksit Bharat, in your mind, please add Surakshit Bharat. If Viksit Bharat does not remain Surakshit Bharat, Soni ki chidiya will be plucked featherless and we will again be saved. So that is the reason that I stand in front of you and tell you that security is no more a military solution, security is no more a military problem. When we start looking at how today resources are weaponized, when you have fossil fuel weaponized in the form of petrodollar, somebody's economy is growing at your cost. When you look at Russia-Ukraine war, the resources from Ukraine as well as from Russia are weaponized. Europe dependent on Russian oil and gas. Europe is told taps are shut off. Either you stop supporting Ukraine or I am not giving you in winter. So they have to buy at a very rich cost from Qatar or any such country. And India follows its national interest cleverly and it says, Russia, if you don't sell, you will not be able to fight. If you sell it to us, we will refine the crude and sell it to Europe. What is wrong? So when Dr. Jaishankar is questioned, and this is where diplomacy comes in, with economics, that you take a stand which is good for your nation. You don't take a stand because somebody else is telling you. And this is the difference in diplomacy, where what is a partnership and what is an alliance. India does not get into alliances. India gets into partnerships. So if I am a partner, I can break the partnership whenever I want, or I can postpone that partnership whenever I want. But if I am in an alliance, NATO is an alliance. So every country, whether they like it or not, they have to support Ukraine. See how carefully we are doing it. This is also which has come out of Kautilya's Arthashastra. Out of the 7 Saptan that I was explaining, Swami is one, Amartya is the second one. Then if a nation has to exist, they must have people. And the people must have territory. So that is called Janpad. When you have Janpad, when you have a king, when you have advisors, then you need infrastructure. In the olden days, there were forts. Now, I ask anybody who will say forts were for waging war. No. Our ancient wisdom said a fort is required at every 10 or 20 kilometers because the people who move on these roads or tracks are moving either for trade or are going for pilgrimage or are going for marriages. The citizen has to be looked after. And to look after the citizen, there was a series of forts, and that was called by Kautilya as Durg. So Durg was ensuring your prosperity and your security. After that, if all this is happening, then money is coming. So that is called Kosh. So the king gets this money either in the form of revenue from a farmer or from the trader, or if he wages war, then he gets out of the people whom he has captured. So your Kosh is supposed to increase. But not by fleecing the farmer or not by fleecing the citizen. That is exactly how a king is supposed to function. After these 5, the 6th one was Mitra. That is where diplomacy comes in. So Kautilya had mentioned about Mitra that your neighbor, logically, anyone here will say that my neighbor should be my Mitra, not necessarily. He propounded another theory which is called the Mandala theory. In Mandala theory, he said your neighbor will not be your Mitra, but his neighbor will be your Mitra. So this, when you look at the past couple of national security advisors in India who have publicly said that our foreign policy, our security policy has pearls of wisdom from what Kautilya said. So if we engage with Afghanistan, even if we don't like Taliban, but that being a neighbor of Pakistan should be our neighbor, logical. If we start engaging with neighbors of China, whether it is Mongolia, whether it is Vietnam, whether it is Korea, whether it is Thailand, Indonesia, it fits in perfectly with the ancient wisdom. So your Mitra's neighbor should be your neighbor, your neighbor's neighbor. Now the 7th one is what is important, that is Dand. Now Dand is explained by internal security and external security. So internal, in today's context, it is the police, and external will be the armed forces. So along with police comes the judiciary also. So there are students from law. You have to understand that you fit into this Dand process. So for a long period of time in India, we have been hearing and talking of police reforms and judicial reform. So a nation, unless it gets its judicial reforms in place or police reforms in place, there will be internal chaos and turbulence, and what General Rawat said, 2.5 front, that half front is what I am talking about. Now he mentioned in simplistic terms, he said for any citizen or for the king, there are some upayas that you must avoid conflict. You must avoid conflict with your neighbor, you must avoid conflict with the village head, you must avoid conflict with your neighboring state, and for that he gave upaya. Sam Dam, मुझे मालूम था ये बोलेंगे आप. Sam Dam Bhed Dand. Dand comes last. आपने जब दंड दे दिया तो फिर क्या भेद है? So you have to समझाना साम, खरीदना दाम, उसको डिवाइड करो with conspiracy, and then if he doesn't still listen, then give a danda. Sam dam bhed dand. That is how it should be. And today when you try and correlate, you will find a lot of things happening in that order. Haven't you read or seen unknown people doing something in Pakistan? So what is that? There is something which is happening which you do not know, and why should you know? If they can do 26/11 to you, can't you do it? You should do. Again, all these people gave a lot of importance to espionage. Shivaji had the best possible intelligence chief. You know his name? Bahirji Nayak. I still am looking for his original picture. An intelligence chief's picture will never be flashed. And if it is flashed, then he is no more the intelligence chief. But Bahirji Nayak was capable of making a map of Surat to say, this house has so much of gold buried underneath, how many feet underneath, below the staircase is silver, on top of this are diamonds. That is what is true espionage. When Shivaji and Sambhaji were in Agra, the entire escape plan, right under the nose of Aurangzeb and his army, a lot of credit should be given to Bahirji. So espionage is not bad. So when people start saying, oh, he's a spy, he may be a spy for us, but he's a patriot for his country. Same is the case with us. So these are those unknown people who contribute their entire life, and they are not known, their families go through a lot of turbulence, So even when you talk of security, there are certain unknown elements of security which function without your and me knowing it. Why did I bring espionage and this here? In the current context, the biggest espionage which is happening right now at this moment is through the cell phones which are in your pocket. Now this is technology, what it does to us. If you look at your mobile functioning, 1.4 billion people, out of that 1 billion people are on smartphones. Entire internet is owned by a country. What you call as free WhatsApp and free Facebook or free Instagram, nothing is free. All that data gets transported. There is a technology which is called big data analysis. So you have data center, the entire thing is churned, and sentiment analysis about India. Sentiment analysis is followed by something known as information warfare or narrative warfare. Where early morning suddenly, and I think all of you, including me, the first thing when you get up is you look at your mobile. And there is a flurry of messages which has come. Anti-India, anti-government, anti-this caste, anti-that caste, plenty of it. And what do? So we look at it, we say, this I must immediately send it to my group, because my group should say I am head of a cool cat. So I immediately do what is known as, in Kaun Banega Crorepati, fastest finger. I have not analyzed, I have not thought about it, but I have proliferated it, I have become a messenger, and I have become a part of that conspiracy. But if we are to actually combat information warfare, we must look at the message. There are only 3 questions to be asked. Do I think it is positive? Send it. Do I think it is absolutely negative and vitriolic against India or against somebody I don't know? I should not send it forward, but whoever sent it to me, I must ask him, do you know this? If you don't know, why did you send it to me? It will get killed. And the third one is extremely good for us. In India still today, till date, we have a strong family system. We have a strong Guru Shishya Parampara. You ask your teacher, you ask your elder brother, you ask your sister, you ask your mother, they will tell you, either they don't know, they will say, okay, let me ask my grandmother. It will happen. But because you don't know something and you are proliferating it, you are making the job of your adversary easy. China has a document known as the 3 warfare strategy. How many of you have read it? Just raise your hand. Nobody. So that is another point. We must know our adversaries better than what we know ourselves. Sun Tzu is a Chinese thinker, and he had said, know your enemy. Win a war even without fighting a war. How do you do that? So the best way to do it is to win a cognitive war, to win the war of the mind. And information warfare is a part of that. So when you start looking at what exactly is being done by them, they look at which are the fault lines in a democracy. Caste, religion, class, language, region, these are the fault lines. And these fault lines are preserved because in a democracy you have the freedom to talk about everything. But when you cross that line and somebody is able to pick out this as a data and he creates a data set out of it, so data points and data set. So data points are what are the points which divide this country, and data set is this is to be used for narrative. So in that 3 warfare strategy, the first one is legal. I'll explain about that slightly later. Second is public opinion, and the third is psychological warfare or influence warfare. Now you've seen on social media, there are so many influencers who got millions of followers. So if, as China, if I'm able to compromise a couple of them, the penetration of this narrative, which is anti-Indian but subtle, can go down right to a village can go right up to the first village on the border in Uttarakhand, Arunachal, Jammu Kashmir or Himachal. See, I have not launched any war, but I am still able to weaken the adversary, right? If I ask you how do you identify an adversary, you will say, sir, 62 में China से लड़ाई हुआ था तो वो adversary है, ठीक है? 65, 71, 99 पाकिस्तान से हुआ तो वो पाकिस्तान adversary. तो इंटरनेट किसका है? Who owns the internet? So when our Prime Minister meets the President of USA, it is not to say hello. He is looking at a Prime Minister, how I can leverage him to buy F-35 or to buy Striker or to buy engines for Tejas. So that leveraging, because the fault lines are sitting with him. Similar fault lines are sitting with China. Another anecdote. When Doklam happened, when did it happen? 2017. Okay, 2017, and again a misnomer if some of you feel, because it is in the media. Firstly, it is not Doklam, it is Dolam Plateau, and secondly, it is not Indian territory. It is Bhutan territory, and I have served there for 3 years, and I know what we did during those 3 years. We made defenses on our side. Dolam Plateau is Bhutan land. So when the Chinese came into Dolam Plateau, Bhutan obviously had no capacity to resist, nor the intent to resist. So it was India as a friend who went in and blocked the Chinese there. And that is the time when General Rawat had just become the chief. So he took this action, and how two ministries should come together is exactly how it happened that time. When General Rawat said, I am going to block them. And he asked Dr. Jaishankar, who was the foreign secretary at that time, he said, "Aapka kya kehna?" He said, "Aap kariye, support my." Now, at that particular point in time, what was China doing in addition to coming into Dolam Plateau? Nobody has possibly thought about it, researched it. I will tell you. The Chinese ambassador in India got hold of a number of media people from India, financed their visit to China, and took them there. There were 7 resident correspondents in Beijing or Shanghai. They were writing exactly what was being given to them by People's Daily or Xinhua or Global Times. Exactly. Not a full stop or a comma was different. What did India do? We said no media will go anywhere near Dolam. We will tell you what is happening there, or we will not tell you what is happening. But we don't want you to write something which weakens us. And that was a golden opportunity. During that time, we got to know exactly which media house is funded or supported by China. So at times something is not explained, but it happens. There was one newspaper which gave a full-size picture of Xi Jinping. Now what can you do as a citizen? You can at least stop buying these. You can boycott them. Nobody has to tell you. But if you are a nationalist, you can start doing it. At the same time, anybody who's from Darjeeling? Bengal? Around that same time, June 2017 onwards, or around that time, there was an agitation in the same area for Gorkhaland. All roads got blocked. Nobody was allowed to move. Okay, that is one part. Nobody can stop the military from moving. But what is the danger? If our guns are moving, it gets reported. Because these people are on the road. They are seen. So what did we do? We put our gun inside a truck, closed it and took it. Because in a democracy, I can't kick them out. I can't do something which is undemocratic, even if we do. The point here I am trying to make, I am not sure whether this was Chinese connivance or not. But at least as citizens, you must know what is in national interest and when and where. When Galwan happened, and even in the past wars that happened, the ordnance factory workers threatened the government that we will go on strike. And there is one particular labor union which said this is the time to bargain hard with the government. I leave it to you to understand whether this is the right approach for a nation, whether it is power or security. In both the cases, whether this citizen's behavior is appropriate or inappropriate. After that, when we start looking at what the government has done, in fact, even before Galwan happened, there was a call which had been given by the labor union to say that 41 ordnance factories will go on strike. So in 2019, the government corporatized these ordnance factories. That's the end of it. So the government will have to take strong action. And now when you see in media when people say, oh, their human rights are being violated, I think national rights are more important than any other. So I told you how Chinese in their part of 3 warfare strategy looks at psychological warfare to impact us, to show us that Indians are useless, Indians have no capability, and only Chinese system is better. So that is psychological warfare aimed at us. The second pillar I had said was public opinion. That is a narrative meant for the Chinese population to say that Xi Jinping is 10 feet tall, the PLA army is 10 feet tall, the Indians are dwarfs, Indians have nothing, and so and so, so and so. So that is the second pillar, which is called the public opinion through information or misinformation or disinformation. And the first one which I explained was legal warfare. Now what is legal warfare? They issue a document within China to say Arunachal is a part of China, because Tibet is a part of China, because many years ago, before Buddhism came into Tibet, so there was a Chinese emperor there. So that is distorting history and giving it a legal tinge. The second thing, you name certain villages or places or mountains which are in India with Chinese name and say, see, these are Chinese names, so these are ours. And then you issue another law where you say that these areas are a part of so and so district and this law of China applies on them. So again, this is legal warfare. You create artificial islands in South China Sea and then you pass a law that all these islands are a part of so and so county and the law of the county will be applicable there. Now by creating artificial islands, you extend your exclusive economic zone in the ocean. So all minerals, all passage rights, everything gets controlled by China. So their interest in the Indo-Pacific region is more to develop their economy and security interest, and for which they use the legal right also. Same is the case when they come up with something new and they say this particular thing which some Indian startup or industrialist or scientist has discovered, no, but 10 years back we had done a patent on this. So this is again legal work, that you can't manufacture it without giving me royalty. So that is the way that legal warfare keeps on happening. Now what is our response? Now our response, and again I am not being critical of something, but in a positive way I am trying to point out. India has the biggest constitution, most voluminous constitution. But till date, we have had I think 105 modifications, amendments. So if there is something more that needs to be modified, another 5 amendments doesn't mean anything. But if that makes the nation strong, so be it. It should be done. A few vulnerabilities in our system. You look at last about 7 decades or so, the biggest national losses to us, to our economy, has been because of poor governance and poor law and order enforcement. There is a bus which has been bought with your tax and my tax, and somebody comes and burns it. Somebody goes and starts killing people in Manipur. So we start spending money on their relief, restoration. So instead of building something new, we are now again compensating those people, which we should. But how did it happen? Why did it happen? Why did drugs come into Punjab? Why did drugs come into Kashmir? Now we have to do drug rehabilitation. So we have to spend money there. So what am I trying to tell you? That law enforcement and governance need to be looked at all over again. Maybe there will be a constitutional amendment, I do not know. And I don't want to get into it because tomorrow the newspapers will say that I said it. The second issue is related to health. We've all been through COVID, and that's where Dr. Bhushan comes in. And she's been telling me, and she's worked with us in the NSCS on many issues which I can't talk openly about, even she can't talk about it. But we were looking at something known as philanthropic aggression. So-and-so foundation, so-and-so NGO, what is it doing? It's giving money. Our children are going, studying abroad. They've given money, labs have been established. They've taken those warehouses and storehouses and cold storage. And what is happening inside? Some trial is going on. Now that is another issue of danger. But I may be living next to it, but I said, मुझे क्या करना है? I don't even bother to report. There is a method where the Intelligence Bureau keeps a watch over it. But how will the Intelligence Bureau dream of it if somebody does not tell them? So again, that weakness in the citizen chain. Earlier, there used to be something known as a beat constable. That beat constable of my locality knew exactly how many people are living in my house, who's studying abroad. My son has come back for vacation, he knew everything. Today that beat constable has vanished. Everyone is busy on a mobile. So even this technology can be incorporated to ensure that information is received and this philanthropic aggression is also reduced. The government has really taken a lot of measures towards that, but again, that has to be done in a very subtle manner without spoiling relations. The Russia-Ukraine war, there were a lot of labs, the bio labs, which were functioning there. In fact, Dr. Bhushan is an authority on that. She knows exactly what level of research was happening in Ukraine. And all these labs were being funded by Europe and USA. It's not suddenly out of the sleep that Putin got up and started attacking. He got all this information. Only then he said, this is getting far too dangerous and far too close. The other point which I want to mention is about the chemical part. As you keep getting industrialized, the use of chemicals in industry increases. The infrastructure is already in place. You have residential colonies, you have an industry. Now you can't relocate that. The output of that factory is increasing, multiplication factor. And what happens is suddenly this gas leaks. And why will it leak? Increasingly, most of it is now IT controlled, computer controlled. And I told you somebody is sitting on your internet. So cyber combined with these become more dangerous. The digitization of society is good. Vulnerability of society become more emphasized on this. The surface area of vulnerability increases. Like now we've gone on to the cyber part. There are a number of critical sectors in the nation, because of which a nation can come to a standstill. Finance, energy, railways, airlines, tolls, all this is digitized. Anyone can enter. So, at the national level, there is a security system which is now known as the National Critical Information Infrastructure. For that security, for that protection, there is an organization. And they look at about 7 of these critical sectors. The armed forces look after this. Now, when these 7 critical structures are looked at, but what gets missed out is the citizen. And that is where, when I said that what is in your pocket or in your purse is that 6-inch weapon, which is not hitting out but hitting at you. So, anybody who is controlling a factory using his mobile and thinking that he is hell of a guy can also remember that this is a vulnerability and he better control it. But I don't want to set panic amongst you to say that we lost everything. It's not so. Many times when you read in media that MOD web page has been defaced, there's nothing to get worried. What is to get worried is if they've stolen data. See, a website is for public consumption. A website is like your compound wall. If somebody comes outside and writes something against you, doesn't mean that he's breached your house. But he's advertised that I have come and knocked on your door. So defacing is not necessarily a major threat. But a breach and stealing the data is a major threat. Are all the cyber attacks on India coming from Pakistan and China only? They are coming from Russia, they are coming from Germany, they are coming from USA, they are coming from Australia. In fact, there is a system where you can see minute to minute, every second, where the cyber attacks are coming on to India. In fact, you stand there, you realize everyone is attacking us. So obviously they have some interest, or somebody is making them do it. So that if China wants us to be attacked, it may be paying some country, and from there it must be happening. So what are known as non-state actors? So in the new form of warfare, the state actors and non-state actors are working together. Russians have something known as the Wagner Group. They are active in the African continent. It's not Russian army, but Russian interests are being protected because critical minerals, oil, and all those things are being protected by the Wagner Group. Whether it's Mozambique, whether it's Libya, Burkina Faso, wherever you find. So now you find in the new form of geopolitical order, business interests are dictating on power and security. So it's not funny that you find Elon Musk sitting with President Trump and his child is moving all over. So obviously he's the biggest funder, biggest financer. So that is how things are happening. And government policies and announcements earlier used to follow a system of bureaucracy where it was analyzed on file, a decision was taken, discussion was happening. But here you have a US president in the middle of the night, he tweets and the policy decision is announced. So things are changing very fast. We have to keep pace with that. So that is the reason where one has to be careful. Along with space information, there is one more new domain which is called the outer space. So you have cyberspace, you have information space, and you have outer space. Satellites are the final solution if you have to look at how we will move from 4G to 5G to 6G communication. China has already discovered laser technology for communication. So laser technology for communication will push them at a very fast pace to get 6G. Where are we? So we were at a stage somewhere around 2016, 17, 18, around that time, when Huawei wanted to enter India and get hold of all the communication technology here. We stopped that. So the challenge was, how will we go to 5G? So the answer was IIT Madras. So the point I am trying to highlight is, we have talent here, we have capability, we have passion here. If all points come together, then things happen. So when 5G was being worked upon by IIT Madras, 2 army officers were also assigned there because the civil and military have to go hand in hand. Otherwise you will find military racing ahead, civil left behind. So there is a term which is called civil-military fusion. Civil-military fusion is something, again, a thing from the West. In India, we never had it. Everything was a part of society, common society. Because that is why we called ourselves a civilizational state, not a nation state. So if we had a farmer and a soldier, so it is civil-military fusion. When I describe this as a civilizational state, it is very simple to understand the basics. In Europe, they came up with European Union and they came up with something known as Schengen visa. And we all clapped. We say how good they are, globalization, and they are permitting each one to move. Go back hundreds of years back and you'll see people from Rameshwaram going for pilgrimage to Badrinath. Was there a passport there? Was there a visa there? We were civilized. We knew that pilgrims are not to be troubled. Pilgrims are to be protected. Pilgrims are to be looked after. Traders are to be looked after. So they entered, they said, we are so and so, okay, good, you stay here. The closest village panchayat used to look after them. The expenditure was deducted. This is what is governance. Without going into voluminous documents. So discover what is our past, find sensible solutions, and ensure that our power increases, and ensure that that power which increases is protected. We recently are looking at launching about 54 satellites, out of which 31 satellites we have given to the private sector. Earlier you only heard of ISRO doing everything. 11th October 2021, the Prime Minister went public immediately after COVID, had 10 startups on a video conference, and he said, defense space sector is being open to you. Come up with solutions, do business, empower our people, empower our nation. Bigger projects like Mangalyaan, Gaganyaan, Chandrayaan, those will be handled by ISRO. So very clearly he brought out that there is enough space for public and private sector, and that is the kind of holistic approach that we are doing in India. And there can be many more things, including climate change. You all heard of a big dam being made by China. You heard of it?
Yes.
You heard of it last couple of months? This has been happening for the last 5 years. And we've been studying it well, and we know exactly what is to be done. We have also done something where most of our states are water stressed. So even Indus Water Treaty, we are asking Pakistan that, not asking, we are telling them that this will be revised. That has also been studied properly. One of the universities near Delhi has done this study along with NSCS to say that how these rivers' water will be shared hereafter. It will take time, but there is a lot of study which has happened. Climate change, a lot of action is being taken. You've heard of all those things which the Prime Minister keeps saying, Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam. So it is not only planting, it is about even looking after. Yesterday in Secunderabad, where I was there, we had a session with the IS, IPS, IFS, Forest Service officers, in which we told them use geospatial intelligence to reduce corruption in the forest department. And we explained to them how it can be done. One good minister, Nitin Gadkari, introduced geospatial intelligence into the Ministry of Road and Transport. It used to take about 1 year for the payment to be cleared. So if it takes 1 year, the contractor will add that much cost to that. So when we had a discussion, we said, you put a geospatial lab in your office, you just feed in the latitude and longitude of a road. On 1st of January, where was it? On 1st of February, where did it reach? On 1st March, 1st April, and you keep giving payments. You just have somebody who goes and monitors what is the thickness of it, otherwise the length and the width you get to know through technology. The same thing can happen through drone. So where there are changes being brought in governance, some ministers and some ministries are very fast at it. So gradually, when we start looking at jobs, people start looking at government jobs, but there is enough scope in the private sector, in the technology infusion in many of these endeavors. Even in education sector, there is so much of technology that gets incorporated to give you quality education.